Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Gaffer series by LCA. My name is Timm Brückner, I'm a gaffer from Berlin, Germany. And today we want to take a closer look at the difference between the Creamsource Vortex Hard and the Creamsource Vortex Soft. Now, I'm pretty sure that everybody knows the unit to my right quite well, the Vortex8 Hard. I think you can say it has become an industry standard over the last years, and you will find it more or less on every lighting truck around the globe. Those 20 degrees are quite a perfect angle for a lot of situations, so it's a really versatile lamp. I can surely say that for myself. I don't think people know the Vortex8 Soft so much. And I think the main reason is because people ask themselves, hey, why actually add another extra unit? I have my Vortex8 Hard. It puts out quite a good amount of light. I can put a diffusion in, I can put a dome in front. The actual size of the output is the same, so why go for another extra unit? I think it's worth taking a closer look to that, and that's what we are going to do right now. So we have two Vortex8s, one hard and one soft. Both have the same color gamut, which is nice if you want to mix them together. Both have the same maximum power draw of 650 watts. Now, if we take a closer look at the hard version, we will find that the front has 128 20-degree lenses. So maybe just on the side, we're not just talking about an RGBW unit. This is actually an RRGBBW unit, meaning it uses two blues and two reds. And under every other lens, you will find the other blue and the other red. It's a blue and a royal blue and a red and a deep red. So 128 20-degree lenses, 512 LEDs, easy to remember, it's a DMX universe. As opposed to this unit, the Vortex8 Soft, no lenses, 110 degrees beam angle, and the amazing amount of 2,592 LEDs on the surface, which already tells you that all these LEDs are quite close together, closer than the 20-degree lenses on the Vortex Hard. This will also come into play when we look at the shadows of both units, which we will do later. I'm now exactly 5 meters away from both units. Taking the 5,600 Kelvin where we are now, I'm getting exactly 5,200 lux from the Vortex Hard, 1,300 lux from the Vortex Soft. That's also exactly what the text sheet says, meaning the Vortex8 puts out 2 stops more than the Vortex Soft. That's 4 times the light. So I personally rather go for an f-stop reading because that's what we use on set, and that it's easier for me to actually get in a picture of what we're talking about. So my meter reads 800 ASA, 25 frames per second. If I now measure the Vortex8, the Vortex8 Hard, 5,600 Kelvin on 100%, I'm getting a reading of 11.5. And if I switch to the Vortex8 Soft, I'm getting a reading of 6.5. So we're exactly those 2 stops apart from another, meaning within that 20-degree angle, the Vortex8 Hard puts out 4 times the amount of light. Now, what seems astonishing is that the Vortex8 Hard, that puts out quite an amount of lux within those 20 degrees, in its overall output actually has only half of the lumens of the Vortex8 Soft. The Vortex8 Hard puts out a good 30,000 lumens, the Vortex8 Soft 58 and a few thousand lumens. Now, what exactly does that mean for us on set? That's one question. And the other question is, am I actually able to replace the Vortex8 Soft with my Vortex8 Hard using the diffusion or the dome? So now let's look at the shadows those units produce. Both units have their LEDs in vertical and horizontal lines. And of course, if you align your object with those lines exactly, you will get the most visible shadows. That's why I built this little funny shadow maker here. A bit strange, but it serves a purpose. So we can start out with the Vortex8 Hard. Okay, and I will hold it in my hand so I can make the best alignment to the LEDs. Now again, 2 stops more output, but you see that the Vortex8 Hard has massive multiple shadows that you can see. You will also see chromatic aberrations in those shadows. If we now switch to the Vortex8 Soft, you can see much softer, but still there are lines, shadow lines that you can see in horizontal and vertical form. Now for that Vortex8 Soft, there's a little 3 diffusion set, and in that 3 diffusion set there is a very, very light diffusion that only takes away 1/10 of a stop. If I slide that in, you can see we have lost, even if I really center my funny object here, we have lost all those individual shadows. Yeah? So I leave that in the Vortex8 for now. We now go back to the Vortex8 Hard. Again, I see all my multiple shadows. 2 stops more light output than on the Vortex8 Soft. Now I go on the medium diffusion that is in the Vortex8 Hard set. I slide that in. And it's important to know that this does not give me 110 degrees. This only gives me 60 degrees, okay? If I take a measurement, I've lost almost 3 stops. Almost 3 stops, meaning now I'm 2/3 of a stop below the Vortex8 Soft. I still see the individual lines. I lost an enormous amount of light output. I don't have the same beam angle, and I still see the shadows. I know the setup is a bit mean, we're on 2 meters distance, but of course I'm doing this to actually really show what's going on. So now I switch from the diffusion to the dome. The output is just the same, just like the diffusion, meaning I've lost almost 3 stops. I'm 2/3 of a stop under the Vortex8 Soft. And now finally my shadows are coming to the point where the Vortex8 Soft is. Now in real life we don't necessarily use those units just as they are, but we use them with accessories. Part of those accessories, a large part of those accessories, are the butterflies that we use mostly to enlarge in our area of light, which leads to softer light actually. And that's what our next setup is. We have the same distance as before from light to talent, meaning also that we have again the 11.5 f-stop on the Vortex8 Hard and the 6.5 f-stop on the Vortex Soft without anything. And a meter in front of the 2 vortexes, we have an 8x8 magic cloth. And we now want to see what happens if we switch between the hard and the soft. So we will start out with the soft. So when we now have the Vortex8 Soft going through the 8x8 magic cloth, we actually see 3 things. We see that the Vortex8, just a meter behind the drape, fills out the whole 8x8 drape nicely. We see that we get quite a soft light on the talent. And if we look at the poly behind the talent, we see that we're getting a very nice and soft shadow. The meter reading says we're close to a 4. That means we have lost about 1.5 stops compared to the Vortex8 Soft without the drape. If we now switch to the Vortex8 Hard, we will again see 3 other things. We are seeing that the Vortex8 Hard does not fill out the drape. Yeah, we see quite a hard spot actually just in front of the lamp. We see that the light on the talent is quite a bit harder than it was before. And we see a much more defined shadow on the pulley. And if I take a measurement now, we're talking about 28.5. That means we actually have less light than with the Vortex8 Soft. We had 2 stops more without the drapes, and now we actually have half a stop less. In our experiment, we will try 2 things to actually see if we can change that and if we can really adopt our Vortex8 Hard to our Vortex8 Soft. And we will have 2 possibilities for that. One is sliding a diffusion in to see what happens. But remember, we're only talking about 60 degrees, not 110. Or the other possibility would be to move the lamp further back away from the drape to fill out the 8x8 drape completely, and then take a measurement and see what happens. That's what we're going to do now. So the first version will be putting in the diffusion into the Vortex8 Hard to see what happens to the shadow and to take a measurement. Okay, so now we've put the diffusion in the Vortex8 Hard, and we can see, yes, the spread on the 8x8 is definitely much better than before. You can also see it in the talent's face. You can also see it in the shadow on the pulley. It's still a bit harder than on the Vortex8 Soft. We can do one quick switch again, please. And back. So this is definitely a much better version than just the Vortex8 Hard alone, but we've sacrificed another 2/3 of a stop here. Yeah, we need to know that. So we've again lost light. So we can now look at the second option of enlarging the distance between the unit and the butterfly. So we're now on our second setup of trying to make the Vortex8 Hard comparable to the Vortex8 Soft. The unit now is 3.5 meters away from the drape. No diffusion in. The amount of light coming to talent is actually the same that we had when we put the diffusion in and were 1 meter away from the drape. We're on the same level of light. We fill out the drape. We have a soft light on the talent, and we have quite a good shadow on the pulley. But looking at the shadow, we are still not quite as soft as the Vortex8 Soft 1 meter behind the drape. And instead of having 2 stops more, we actually now have over a stop less. So now we're in a workstation and we see Kilian soldering some wires. This is actually our end frame, only done with Vortex Hards and Softs. Now we would turn them all off. You see what it looks like. We see almost nothing because it's almost dark outside already. And now we start adding the individual lights, starting with a hard light on the background, which always gives a bit more depth. And if you have the hard light in the background, you can stay, a bit softer, a bit lower in the foreground. That is a yoke with 3 Vortex8s in the background that's coming through the window. We are extending that on the talent with a Vortex8 Soft through a snapback. It just creeps a bit around the neck. Now, of course, we do want to see the talent's face, so we're adding also, because there's very little space and we want to be soft, a Vortex8 Soft through a 4x4 full grid frame with a snap grid on. We're going to add a little bit of the contrasty sun on the tools behind the talent. That is a Vortex4 Hard. And we can add a little flare in the foreground using a microcolor, which is more or less a one-engine vortex hard. So for the second setup, we are again in our workstation. It is night now. What we see outside is the original available light, to which we're now adding a bit of a Vortex24 hard that's standing outside. Then in comes a light from an 8x12 butterfly that's being topped on the left. It's a bleached muslin bounced by a Vortex8 Soft to get a nice soft little fill. We're now adding two Vortex4 hards in sodium vapor tone, the Vortex24 and the butterfly on 5600 Kelvin. Then the vapor tone also comes in a little Creamsource microcolor for the edge of the drawers and the floor. And we're now adding a Vortex4 hard that is being bounced just above the table in the middle. And here comes the actor. So looking at what we've just seen the last minutes, I would say the Vortex8 Soft has just about the same right to be on the trucks as the Vortex8 Hard. If you need punch, you want to overcome long distances, you need the narrow beam angle, of course the Vortex8 Hard is a wonderful tool to go. But if you know that you're going soft, you know you have small distances, the Vortex8 Soft is a great tool. Looking at the link system, you can also combine both the hard and the soft in one area of light, which is also an interesting way to go. So that was it for now. Thank you for watching and have a great day.